Welcome to the Deconstructionist Deep Dive, the show that doesn't just accept the story.
We break it
We examine the pieces.
and expose the machinery inside.
Let's dive in. And for this deep dive, we're asking, what if everything about a particular type of argument, the traditionalist biological destiny argument, isn't just perhaps incomplete, but is, in fact, designed to steer your thinking in a very specific direction?
So today, we're really getting into these fascinating sources you've shared with us. Lots of different pieces, articles, posts, essays, but they all seem to circle around this narrative.
Right, a narrative offering, well, seemingly clear solutions for relationship problems today.
Exactly. It pushes for a return to what it calls traditional values, fixed gender roles based on evolutionary wiring.
And it often blames modern tech, doesn't it? Like social media, dating apps, even porn, saying they're ruining real connection.
Yeah, leading to problems like narcissism in women or men feeling disposable. That's the diagnosis offered.
Okay, so our mission here, for you listening, is to carefully take this narrative apart. We're applying our deconstructionist lens.
Not to just, dismiss it out of hand, but to understand how it works.
Right. How does it offer that feeling of certainty, of safety, but also what's the potential trade-off? What about personal autonomy, intellectual freedom?
We want to give you the tools to see the layers here.
So the proposed solution often involves things like honesty, integrity, shared purpose, monogamy, duty.
Yeah, and often linking these back to religious frameworks is maybe the best way to get them.
And there was that recurring theme in the sources about submission.
Oh, absolutely. The idea that a woman submitting to a worthy man's leadership is somehow natural, even optimal for her happiness.
And that feminism gets this wrong, calling it narcissism instead.
Exactly. It's framing submission as fulfillment.
It's interesting because the whole framework seems to boil down complex human beings, relationships, identity.
Into a really simple binary,
Yeah.
right? Often driven by these evolutionary claims.
Yeah, like the only path forward is stepping back into these predefined roles, not evolving.
Precisely. It's less a solution, more a prescribed retreat.
Okay, so let's map out the core arguments presented in these sources. What's the main problem they identify?
The problem, as they frame it, is modern tech. Endless choice, instant gratification. It all leads to superficiality, supposedly destroying real connection.
And that connects directly to a very specific view of gender dynamics.
Men as leaders, providers needing respect, appreciation. Women as nurturers needing safety, provision, focusing on beauty. It's quite rigid.
And they use specific data points to back this up, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Things like the 4% divorce rate for arranged marriages versus 40% for conventional ones. That one comes up a lot.
Presented almost like proof positive.
Or the idea that, beautiful women or rich men get cheated on more. Statistics used to underline their truth.
Which leads to a really important question for you listening right now. Why do you think this resonates? Why does this story feel compelling to so many people?
Especially when maybe you're feeling a bit lost or overwhelmed by modern dating.
What's the appeal?
It's a powerful question. Because analytically, this narrative works almost like a PSYOP. It taps into genuine anxiety.
Like loneliness, disconnection, real feelings.
Right. And then it offers this simple, authoritative-sounding solution. Go back. Go back to simpler times, traditional structures, maybe religion.
It's selling certainty, selling safety.
Exactly. But, as the sources suggest, it might be masking a very prescriptive, traditionalist agenda underneath.
That's a sharp way to put it. And it makes you think, okay, who benefits from this way of thinking?
Good question. Because this model isn't just describing things, it seems designed to stabilize certain structures.
Like traditional family units, patriarchal hierarchies, maybe specific institutions.
Yeah, it seems to sort of gently guide people back into these predefined, maybe more easily managed roles.
Okay, so let's start to actually probe these premises. How solid are they? That 4% divorce rate, for instance.
Right. Is that figure universally true? Or does it mostly apply in cultures where divorce carries huge stigma or, severe economic consequences?
So the statistic might not be measuring happy marriages.
It might be measuring the difficulty of leaving a marriage, lack of choice, lack of agency, rather than relationships success. It's about what's really being measured.
Causation versus correlation, yeah. And what about the evolutionary psychology claims? The hardwiring arguments?
Are they rigorously proven facts? Or are they more like just so stories?
Explanations made up after the fact to fit a conclusion you already wanted.
Exactly. Twisting observations to fit a pre-existing narrative about how things should be.
Let's dig into that science a bit more. Like that argument reducing attraction to, what was it, 70% environment, 30% genetics.
Yeah, where does that number even come from? Is there solid, peer-reviewed research backing that specific breakdown? Or is it just asserted?
And it often feels like these arguments reduce a person's entire value down to how well they fit these biological stereotypes.
Right. It sort of dismisses the huge range of human complexity, our unique desires, our ability to grow beyond those fixed boxes.
Which is where you start seeing some, well, internal contradictions, maybe.
I think so. Like, the sources might advocate for honesty in relationships.
But the framework itself seems to require people to ignore parts of themselves, their own desires, ambitions, their own truths.
Yeah, it's a strange paradox. You see claims of not judging, but then the language gets pretty pointed.
Like calling women seeking autonomy narcissistic
Yes.
or modern dating vacuous.
Exactly. And even when they critique something like the red pill movement, calling it a diseased reaction,
They often turn around and offer their own rigid set of rules, just with a different flavor.
it's not really about freedom. It's about choosing which cage you prefer.
Which I guess brings us to the real point of this analysis.
Yeah, it's not just about critiquing the arguments themselves. It's about showing how they might be constructed to make you, the listener, question your own judgment,
To doubt your own autonomy.
to subtly nudge you towards accepting their prepackaged answer instead of finding your own.
That's quite a thought. Okay, so we've looked at the claims, the contradictions. Now, what about connecting these arguments to bigger historical patterns, systems of control?
Absolutely. This is where we can do a sort of historical cross-reference. It's fascinating how these ideas echo older structures.
Okay, let's take one. That idea from the sources. Submission to a worthy man is the natural and optimal state for women. How does that connect historically?
Well, from a control perspective, it's very similar to the logic behind the divine right of kings, or just patriarchy in general. Meaning, it posits a preordained authority, divine will, or in this case, biological imperative that shouldn't be questioned. Power is justified as natural.
And what's a strong philosophical challenge to that?
You immediately think of someone like Simone de Beauvoir. Her existentialist feminism directly refutes this.
Her famous line.
One is not born, but rather becomes a woman, emphasizing social construction, learning, agency over some fixed biological destiny.
So, challenging the idea that external forces define you. And how does someone like Foucault help us see the power dynamics here?
Foucault's work on power knowledge is key. He showed how what we consider truth about human nature, society, whatever, is often created by powerful groups to legitimize their own control.
So, natural law can actually be a social construct serving power.
Precisely. Makes you question where these truths really come from.
Okay, let's take another one from the sources. The purpose of relationship is shared meaning and purpose, primarily through family.
To me, that has echoes of feudal obligation.
How so?
In feudalism, an individual's purpose, even their identity and survival, was tied directly to these pre-existing structures, the lord, the land, and especially the family unit as an economic pillar.
But is that your purpose or one assigned to you? What philosophy pushes back against that?
Stoic virtue ethics offers a stark contrast. The Stoics located purpose internally.
In character, wisdom.
Exactly. Inner freedom, virtue, not dependence on external structures like family for your core meaning.
And thinking about power systems again, how did Marx view the family?
Marx's critique saw the family not just as about love, but as a crucial economic unit reinforcing property rights and class structures, especially under capitalism. Part of the system maintaining economic inequality.
So potentially a unit of control, not just meaning. Okay, last one. The big claim that evolutionary hardwiring dictates modern relationship preferences and behaviors.
This feels very much like social Darwinism dressed up in modern language.
Using a simplistic take on evolution to justify existing social hierarchies.
Yes, framing perceived gender differences or social inequalities as natural and therefore unchangeable. It's a justification strategy.
And how do we challenge such a sweeping claim philosophically?
Postmodernism's rejection of grand narratives is relevant here. Postmodern thought really questions the idea of a single fixed human nature or one evolutionary story dictating everything. It highlights fluidity, diversity, construction.
And the Frankfurt School's critique.
Their critical theory was brilliant at showing how supposedly objective scientific explanations, especially about society, often hide an ideology.
How they can justify the status quo by calling it biology.
Exactly. Masking social and historical forces as immutable natural laws. unmasking the power embedded in science.
Wow. Seeing those historical parallels really adds another layer. Okay, so moving on, the sources also seem to use specific argumentative tactics, maybe even deceptions, to persuade. Let's break down a few.
Right, let's call them out. First up, Deception 1, the naturalistic fallacy of gender roles. This is basically a logical error, often hiding suppressed evidence.
Can you quickly explain that fallacy again?
Sure, it's arguing that because something is or seems to be natural, it therefore ought to be that way or it's inherently good. Confuses is with ought.
Like saying lions eat gazelles, so it's morally right?
Kind of, yeah. In this context, it's like saying historically roles were X, therefore roles should be X. It echoes old ideas like the great chain of being, a fixed hierarchy for everything. This just repackages it for relationships.
And if you accept that, what's the impact?
You risk willingly becoming a character in someone else's old script. You might end up reinforcing your own limitations, trading autonomy for a pre-written part.
Okay, next. Deception 2. The statistical mirage of arranged marriage. This seems to involve leaving things out, maybe rewriting history a bit.
It reminds me of Plato's Noble Lie, a story told to keep society stable, but it ignores the reality for many individuals trapped in those systems. People for whom arranged marriage wasn't a choice, but an economic or social necessity.
So what's the real takeaway when we see that low divorce rate statistic?
Celebrating that low rate without acknowledging the immense pressure against divorce in those contexts. Well, it's like praising a prison's strong walls. It measures containment, not necessarily happiness or fulfillment.
Got it. Deception 3. The dichotomy of modern chaos versus traditional order. This feels like a classic fear tactic, forcing a choice.
It absolutely is. It's very similar to the golden age fallacy you see throughout history, especially in times of change. Painting a perfect, orderly past that, frankly, never existed in that idealized form.
And seeing through that gives us what freedom?
It frees you from a false choice.
Yeah.
You don't have to pick between a mythical perfect past and a present defined only by its problems. It lets you imagine and create a different future, a more liberated one.
Okay, this next one is potent. Deception 4. Feminism is narcissism. That sounds like a straw man argument using fear.
Textbook. It's an old tactic. Pathologize dissent. Call suffragettes hysterical. Call civil rights activists aggressive. Reframe demands for equality as personal flaws.
So when we deconstruct that claim, what are we really seeing?
We're seeing an attempt to redefine basic demands for equality, for bodily autonomy, as mere vanity. It's essentially psychological gaslighting on a societal scale, designed to undermine the legitimacy of seeking self-determination.
Okay, Deception 5. The weaponization of evolutionary psychology. Using science, or scientism, may be suppressing evidence.
Yeah, it feels a bit like phrenology for today. Phrenology used skull bumps to judge character pseudoscience justifying prejudice. This uses the language of science, evopsych, to legitimize existing social biases or traditional power structures.
And how does that limit our own sense of possibility?
It uses the authority of biology to basically shut down conversations about human potential. It tries to convince you that your desires aren't really yours, they're just your genes talking, and therefore you can't change them. It locks you into your perceived biological past.
Right. And finally, Deception 6. The illusion of choice and submission. This one uses language in a really tricky way, like doublespeak.
It really does. It reminds me of what Etienne de la Boétie called voluntary servitude, that mystery of why people sometimes seem to willingly accept constraints. It's manipulating the language of freedom.
So what's the actual truth being obscured here?
Calling subordination delegation or obedience trust. It's a vocabulary designed to make entrapment sound like empowerment. You can't actually freely choose to give up your freedom. That's a fundamental contradiction that only benefits the one gaining power.
Looking at all these together, you really see how carefully constructed these arguments can be.
Meticulously. Designed, it seems, to narrow your perception of what's possible and ultimately to limit your own agency in shaping your life and relationships.
Which brings us, I think, to the absolute core of it all.
Yes, the ultimate deception, the keystone holding this entire structure together. It's the belief, the assertion that human nature is fixed, simple, and best understood through these specific traditional or evolutionary binaries.
And if that central premise is shaky, if human nature isn't fixed, if it's complex, fluid, capable of change and adaptation,
then the whole argument collapses. It's fundamentally a demand to stop thinking critically, stop evolving personally, stop creating new ways of connecting.
it's an invitation to step outside that framework entirely. So our call to you, listening, is really this.
Reject that false choice. You don't have to pick between the supposed chaos of the algorithm and the rigid prison of tradition. Your mind isn't just some biological artifact to be managed by others.
It's a tool, a weapon even, to be sharpened.
Exactly. And your desire isn't just some evolutionary script you have to follow. It's a frontier for you to explore with intention, with self-awareness.
And your relationships, they aren't just contracts to be negotiated based on old rules.
They're collaborative works of art, things you build together with creativity, with real mutual respect.
So the call is to burn the mental prison.
Metaphorically, yes. Burn it down, not with blind rage, but with sharp critical thinking. Use the very questions these narratives raise to dismantle their limitations. Your mind, that's the one thing no one can truly own, unless you hand it over willingly.
Stop asking for chains. Think for yourself.
Think for yourself.
And that's our deep dive for this week.
Remember, the most dangerous illusion is the one you don't know you're in.
But now you know. So here's our question for you. Where will you see this deception, the traditionalist biological destiny argument, playing out in the next 24 hours? In the news, in an ad, maybe in a conversation you overhear? Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Let us know in the comments. Question the narrative. Deconstruct the dogma. See the system.
We'll see you next time. Stay skeptical.
Thank you for joining us.